So, what is nesting? Nesting is the final stage of your call center training where you transition from being just a call center trainee to becoming a full time call center agent. Most people refer to nesting as a transition period, but the thing is, it's way more than a transition period. In this stage, you're actually going to take calls from actual customers. So basically, just think of nesting as if you're already a call center agent. The only difference with nesting and the actual shift of a full time call center agent is that most of the time, you're probably going to be only taking calls for 4 hours, and the rest of those 4 hours will be spent with your coach discussing the problems that you encounter during those calls. Meaning, you're still going to be taking calls from actual customers. The only difference is the amount of time that you do. It's basically a lighter version of the shift of a full time call center agent. Is there a possibility to be terminated from your nesting? And the answer to that is yes. There is still a possibility that the company could still kick you out from the training. But whether it's a high or low possibility depends on your account. There are accounts that are a little bit strict when it comes to their standards. And there are also other accounts where they accept trainees as long as that certain trainee is doing his or her best to learn everything that there is to learn. If you really want to know, you can ask the call center agents from that company, from that same account, and see what the agents say. If they say that termination during nesting is not that common, then that means you have a low chance of getting terminated as long as you do your part. I have two sets of tips here. The tips before the nesting and the tips during the nesting. Let's begin. Your goal before the nesting is to learn everything there is to know about the product knowledge. Of course. And that's because once you take calls, you cannot choose the issues of the customers that you're going to talk to. It's going to be random. Some of them are going to be simple, some of them are going to be complicated. Some customers will be friendly, and some will be irate. The only difference with your task to the task of a full-time call center agent is the amount of hours you spend taking calls. That's it. But the issues and the moods of the customers are going to be random, just like a full-time call center agent. So yes, you want to be as independent as you can, and that starts by familiarizing everything that there is to familiarize about the product. Of course, that's never going to be possible 100%, but try your best. I would just want to emphasize the importance of knowing the product knowledge before you go into nesting. Another thing is, once you're on the floor, it's every man or woman for himself or herself. Sure, your coach is going to supervise you. Sure, your coach is going to help you, but your coach can only do so much. There are going to be more trainees than coaches. So that means that even if your coach wants to help you, and he will help you from time to time, majority of the time, you're on your own. So I cannot stress enough the importance of knowing your product. Take note of the common issues. What I mean is, in any account, there will always be customer issues that are a little more prevalent, more common than the other issues. What you want to do if you really want to pass your nesting is to take note of those most common issues. If you know those most common issues, then you basically know how to deal with around 80% of your calls. That's a big percentage. That's already going to help you. The rest of the 20%, you will have to ask your coach about it, or you can ask the call center agent beside you. So if you at least know how to solve the majority of those issues, then you're only going to be asking questions about the rest of the 20%. When it comes to familiarizing the common issues, you need to take note of the solutions involved and the processes. For example, a customer wants to cancel an order. You have to ask yourself, what should I do first? What are the processes involved? Who should I contact? What buttons should I press? Picture these things out in your head. Play them out in your head. The more you do that, the more you're making it easier for you to remember every single solution for each common issue, and the higher your chance of passing your nesting. I read some comments from you guys saying that in some accounts, bringing a pen and paper is not allowed. That's another problem. It's going to make your life a little bit harder because obviously you can't retain every information that's dished out to you. So, what I want you to do is when you get home, try to remember those common issues and then write down the processes and the solutions involved. That's really the best thing that you can do. For some reason, countries in Europe and in North America are getting more and more concerned about their privacy. So that is probably why most call centers are no longer allowing their agents to bring a pen and paper on the floor, which, needless to say, just makes everyone's life harder. When I had my first call center training 7 years ago, it was totally allowed to bring a pen and paper. Because even if you bring a pen and paper, it's still going to be hard to retain all the information. You're still going to experience information overload. Now, I cannot imagine how hard it would be for you. So, in this case, I guess you really don't have a choice but to take notes once you get home when the memory of the common issues and solutions and processes is still fresh. Engage in a mock call with a co-trainee. And not just any other co-trainee. I want you to pick a co-trainee who is already an experienced call center agent. That's very important. And that's because an experienced call center agent already has an experience of how a customer sounds during an actual call. So when you hear this, you would already get an idea, a realistic idea of how a customer would sound like in an actual call. But I also want you to engage in a mock call proactively. What I mean by that is there are going to be times during your training where everyone is idle. The trainer is somewhere else and you trainees are left in the room idle. Nothing to do but to talk. Those are the times that I mean by idle. And if you're really anxious about your nesting and you don't think that you're going to pass, then this is your chance to increase your chances of passing your nesting. Grab a co-trainee, an experienced call center agent, and try to play out different scenarios with her. Try the common issues first. You can take turns acting as the call center agent and the customer. This way, when she's acting as the agent, you will be able to listen and observe how she answers your questions as the customer. In this channel, I have 5 mock calls so far, but they are not specific to your account. Engaging in a mock call with your co-trainee, who is an experienced call center agent, should help you better when it comes to your nesting. Ask smart questions. Your trainer is going to supervise you very closely, but needless to say, she's not always going to be there by your side because there will be a lot of trainees and probably even only one trainer. This is where learning the product knowledge as best as you can comes into play. If you're familiar with most of them, then it's going to make your life easier. So once you're in the nesting period and you have a question, try reading the knowledge base first. A knowledge base, by the way, is a set of information installed in your computer. It contains everything that there is to learn about the account, the processes, the solutions, the issues. So if you have a question, the first thing that you need to do is to check the knowledge base. The only problem with most knowledge base is it's usually convoluted, which means they are hard to sift through. If you're looking for a single one-word answer, it's going to take a little time for you to find that. So another tip that I can give you is to also familiarize the knowledge base. Usually, your knowledge base is going to be sorted by numbers or letters or codes. So take the time to remember which number is this certain issue. So you will be able to pull up the answer faster, or better yet, memorize the whole thing. The good thing is, the more you take calls, the more you're gonna memorize some of the issues with the code of their knowledge base. But what if you cannot find the answer in your knowledge base? Well, in this case, that is the perfect time to ask your coach, or if your coach is unavailable, you can probably ask the call center agent beside you if they are not busy, because of course they are also assisting other customers. Don't worry, I know a lot of you are already anxious at the thought of getting help from your seatmates. And I am an introvert, but I have tried it, and most call center agents don't actually mind helping you. They know how hard it is to be in nesting, to be a beginner, and to have almost no clue whatsoever. But the thing is, they will help you if they have the time, if they have the opportunity. They can relate to what you're experiencing. So if they have the time, they will certainly help you. Don't worry about it. But of course, make sure that what you're asking is something that cannot be found in the knowledge base, or something that is so obscure that it's so hard to find in the knowledge base. And once you get your answer, make sure that you don't ask the same question again. Make sure to remember the answer to that question. What really annoys a lot of trainer and a lot of call center agents when beginners ask them something is when they ask the same question. Because if you're given an answer or solution to this question or problem, your duty is to remember that. So the next time it happens, you don't have to ask anymore. It's important that you do not blurt out every single question that comes into your head. Think about it first, analyze the situation, and check the product knowledge. If you still cannot find your answer, then ask your trainer or the call center agent beside you if she's not busy. The good thing is, if you need more time to think about the customer's question and problem, you can put the customer on hold. During nesting, unfortunately, it's going to be a little bit longer than the minimum hold time. And that's usually okay because you're still starting out. You're still in the nesting period. Of course, it goes without saying that you need to get back to the customer as fast as you can. But in this case, if you exceed the allowed hold time, and most of the time is usually 2 minutes with most accounts, then your trainer is probably going to be okay with that. These are the issues that I usually hear from call center newbies. So the first one is the difficulty of understanding the accent and keeping up with the pace of the customer. This is a common issue. I have experienced this on my first day of taking calls, and this is something that all non-native speakers is going to experience in their first day of call. Don't feel bad about yourself. You are not alone. In my experience, I still could understand the customer. It's not like all gibberish to me, but it was lagging. My brain was lagging behind. It wasn't a spontaneous or automatic understanding. I had to ask the customers follow-up questions just to confirm what she's saying sometimes. And then there are also those company names that I don't even know about. For example, there was one time that I asked a customer to spell Purolator. Purolator, by the way, is a known courier in Canada. And I didn't know that existed at the time. And then when I asked the customer can you spell what you said just now? It was just so obvious that I was not in Canada. She spelled it anyway. And she said yeah, that's like a well-known courier here in Canada and you don't even know that. I ignored it and just proceeded with the solution. There were always going to be those moments, and you cannot avoid them. There will always be those first time hearing about Purolator, first time hearing this kind of name from a customer, anything really. The good thing is it's not going to be forever. You will be better over time. I guess it all boils down to your determination, to your desire to be in this industry. And when it comes to the accent of your customers, chances are you're going to get used to it. The thing that's keeping you from understanding it automatically is your anxiety. This anxiety is going to fade over time with experience because you have passed your call center training, you have passed your interview, and that means something. That means that you can actually understand the English language, not 100% maybe, not perfectly, but you have the foundation of understanding the accent and the language. If your customer's accent is your problem, then listen to as much English material using that accent. That's really it. That's really all you have to do. Your goal is to train your ears to hear that accent so that there will come a point where understanding that accent will come naturally to you. Your brain doesn't have to exert as much effort understanding it because you're used to it. That's just how it works. You just have to be consistent with your listening. Don't do it this day for 8 hours. Do it every single day, even if it's just 1 hour per day. As long as you're doing it consistently, as long as you're exposing yourself to that specific accent, then you should be fine. Another problem is the pace of your customers. Again, it's the same thing. You gotta listen to native English speakers who are known to speak fast, so you'll get used to it. It's like teaching your brain to get used to it, and that's it. confidence is everything. It is not all the time that you will know the answer to every single question that your customers will ask. That's fine. That's normal. That's understandable. But what you really need to have is the confidence in your voice. You need to convey confidence in your voice. Most call center agents are not even confident, but they have to sound confident. That will take a lot of effort from you. The cliche, fake it till you make it, is probably going to help you here. Even if you don't know the answer, sound like you know the answer. For example, if a customer asks you something and you don't know the answer, you cannot say, you cannot say that. You cannot show your customers that you are clueless. You can tell the customer that you don't know, but in a way that sounds confident. You can say something like, that's a good question. I haven't thought of that before. Let me just put you on hold for a minute or two so I can check with my manager, okay? And then you put the customer on hold. But never ever give your customer the idea that you are clueless. I mean, in this case, you are basically telling the customer that you are clueless, but you are conveying to the customer that you are confident that you will be able to answer her question later. The worst that you can do is to stammer and to falter when you're replying to the customer. This is something that you're going to have to learn with practice, but I will make a separate video about this, about how to sound confident over the phone. Because you see, this is a skill that you need to learn if you are to be working in customer service. Unfortunately, this is not something that you will be able to solve in one effort. This is something that every call center in UB is going to experience, especially during their nesting. Don't worry, look at the bright side. This is not going to take forever, and you are not alone in this. Your co-trainees, even the experienced ones, are experiencing information overload. This is something that will solve itself over time. Irate customers. Okay, this is a big one. With irate customers, you really just to sound confident, especially when you're refusing them. By the way, I have a mock call about irate customers. One of them is how to refuse a customer when the company policy cannot grant your customer's request. And in that mock call, the customer was irate. And the other mock call is the customer was irate because the company sent her the wrong item. In this mock call, the agent's goal was to pacify the customer, to make her listen to reason. So you might want to check my mock call playlist in this channel so you will have an idea on how to deal with an irate customer, how to pacify them, and how to refuse them when it's needed. The stress. If you haven't checked it, I have made a video about this on how to balance work and life. I'm going to link it up here where I talked about how you could balance your work and life and the most important thing that you need to prioritize if you're working in this industry. I'm afraid though that the advice that I discussed there are not going to blow your mind. They are more like reminders because I'm pretty sure you already know them, but I just think that you need the reminders. And by the way, I created a second YouTube channel specifically for call center veterans. The goal of that channel is to help call center veterans level up in life. If you're a call center veteran and you want to get out of the industry, you want to explore another industry, and you want to learn something new, then I discuss there tips and advice that you can follow if you want to shift into another field. Because I know a lot of call center agents who want to get out of the industry but think that they don't have a choice, but you do. The thing is, you do, and you can learn another skill. And that's the goal of my second YouTube channel. This channel is more for call center beginners, but if you're a beginner and you're already thinking of quitting the industry someday, then you might also want to check that channel out. All right, that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far, and bye.